Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I want you guys to watch the late great Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. as he gives his last Sunday sermon right before he was assassinated. All right. Now, I believe that this sermon that he's speaking of, I believe that he was trying to tell the people what to expect in the future. I don't know whether he got a revelation from God saying that this was going to happen soon, or that he got whiff of a plan for this to happen in the future. All right. But it is a revelation nonetheless. And I think everybody in the world needs to hear this. All right. This brother, I don't know if you know him. I don't know if you know the times of the day, but he preached unity. All right. He didn't preach hate. He didn't fight hate with hate. You don't fight hate with hate. You don't do that. All right. You don't do that. So let's watch this real fast.
I need not pause to.
You should have just let it play. You need to listen to this. America and the world. Please listen to this message right now. This is before he died.
Pause to say how very delighted I am.
Let me just say something. Let me just say something. If you notice the speech right before Kennedy's death, it's like they almost knew what was coming and they was trying to tell the people. All right? It's similar in that regard. So please watch this.
Morning. To have the opportunity of standing in this very great and significant pulpit. And I do want to express my deep personal appreciation to Dean Sayer and all of the cathedral clergy for extending the invitation. It is always a rich and rewarding experience to take a brief break from our day-to-day demands in the struggle for freedom and human dignity.
Listen closely.
And discuss the issues involved in that struggle with concerned friends of goodwill all over our nation. And certainly it is always a deep and meaningful experience to be in a worship service. And so for many reasons, I'm happy to be here today. I would like to use as a subject from which to preach this morning.
Listen to this.
Remaining awake.
Remaining awake.
Through a great revolution.
Through a great revolution.
And the text for the morning is found in
Revelation.
The book of Revelation.
Oh! Remaining awake. Dude, did you understand what he just said? Remaining awake during a revolution, right? And it got to do with Revelations. Now listen to what my brother says.
There are two passages there that I would like to quote. It's in the 16th chapter of that book. Behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away. I'm sure that most of you have read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving, entitled Rip Van Winkle. The one thing that we usually remember about the story is that Rip Van Winkle slept 20 years.
20 years.
But that is another point in that little story that is almost always completely overlooked.
Amen.
It was a sign in the end.
In the end.
From which Rip went up in the mountain for his long sleep. When Rip Van Winkle went up in the mountain, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down, 20 years later, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, but in looking at the picture, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was.
Didn't even know who he was.
This reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that Rip slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution.
He slept through a revolution.
While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountain, a revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history. And Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep.
Now listen what he's talking about. He jumps from this, and you must listen to these words. I mean, he's trying to tell you what's going to happen in the future without telling. That's what I get anyway. I mean, this brother was inspired by God, I believe, and he spoke God's word, and he was literally inspired by God. So let's listen on to this great brother.
Yes, he slept through a revolution. One of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change.
Social change, look.
Yet they fail to develop the new attitudes.
People live through social changes, right? But they do not adapt to what it is. So what has to happen in that situation, right? We're talking about revelations here. All right. Listen what he first said in the beginning. We're going to talk about revelations, all right? And a great revolution that is to come, that do not be asleep. Theologians, for there will be a great delusion put upon my people. All right? A great delusion. Almost as if a spell was casted down.
The new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution.
Oh, man.
There can be no gainsaying of the fact that a great revolution has taken place in the world today. In the sense it is a triple revolution.
Triple revolution.
That is a technological revolution with the impact of automation and cybernation.
You hear that? Now he's talking about digital, right? He's talking about technology advancing. We're in Revelations now. Now he's talking about technology and advancing, right? Now listen to this, brothers and sisters in Christ. I mean, he is literally giving us revelations from the grave. If you have an eye to ear, and an ear to hear and an eye to see, then please come in here and see, brothers and sisters. Come in here and see.
Then that is a revolution in weaponry with the emergence of atomic and nuclear weapons of warfare. Then that is the human rights revolution, with the freedom explosion that has taken place all over the world. Yes, we do live in a period where changes are taking place. And that is still the voice crying through the vista of time, saying, behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away. Now, whenever anything new comes into history, it brings with it new challenges and new opportunities. And I would like to deal with the challenges that we face today as a result of this triple revolution.
Triple revolution.
That has taken place in the world today. First, we are challenged to develop a world perspective. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And anyone who feels that he can live alone is sleeping through a revolution.
Huh. Oh my.
The world in which we live is geographically one. The challenge that we face today is to make it one in terms of brotherhood.
One in terms of brotherhood. See, he knows where the world's heading at. He's trying to say, like, look, we're in Revelations. We know where the world's heading to. It's heading to a one world totalitarianism, you know, where everybody that's alive will be a slave to the system, all right? And will be branded to where they can't eat, buy, sell, or do anything without having that brand on them, right? So, you just gotta listen.
Now, it's true that the geographical oneness of this age has come into being to a large extent through modern man's scientific ingenuity. Modern man, through his scientific genius, has been able to dwarf distance and place time in chains. And our jet planes have compressed into minutes distances that once took weeks and even months.
Wow. Now do you see, brothers and sisters, what he's saying now? Now he's talking about technology be advanced, so advanced that men will go to and fro, right? In fast speeds. This is in Revelations. Listen to what he's preaching.
All of this tells us that our world is a neighborhood. Through our scientific and technological genius, we have made of this world a neighborhood, and yet we have not had the ethical commitment to make of it a brotherhood.
No, sir.
Somehow and in some way we've got to do this. We must all learn to live together as brothers.
Let me stop him real fast. I can only imagine if brother Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King would have been able to live and survive. And have his way and have his own way and his will. Not the elites, not the synagogue of Satan.
We will all perish together as fools. We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the way God's universe is made. This is the way it's structured. John Donne caught it years ago and placed it in graphic terms. No man is an island in time of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And he goes on toward the end to say, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. We must see this, believe this, and live by it if we are to remain awake through a great revolution. Secondly, we are challenged to eradicate the last vestiges of racial injustice from our nation. I must say this morning that racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. It is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle and sometimes not so subtle. The disease of racism permeates and poisons a whole body politic. And I can see nothing more urgent
Listen.
than for America to work passionately and unrelentingly to get rid of the disease of racism. Something positive must be done. Everyone must share in the guilt.
And if you think Obama was to end that, no. That was the enemy infiltrating their own. And why do you think it's racism going on right now, all on the news? We don't have racism amongst each other right now. It's all on the freaking news. They are dividing us. The news systems are dividing us. You do understand what I'm saying? So it's almost as if like he glimpsed into the future. He's like, I'm speaking on Revelations here. We need to really fix this problem right now. All right? Because in the future, if we don't, it's going to be our damn downfall. They're going to use this shit. They're going to play it against us. They're going to play right versus left, black versus white, gay versus non-gay, whatever, boy versus girl. They're playing it all on us, folks. They are dividing us, all right? They have been dividing us. Why do you think they killed Reverend Martin Luther King? I mean, come on. It takes no more than rocket sciences to understand why they killed this man, all right? All right? They killed this man because he was uniting. He was uniting the races. And with that, guess what? You can't use racism and race baiting to divide us no more, because we would have been united as a one nation under God. All right? That's why. So, all you people that is on that Obama gravy train, you are the great delusion. You are delusioned. All right? There's nothing wrong with that. You need to wake up and come out of that delusion. Now, can you? I don't know. That's up to, if God allows that or not. You know what I mean? But that's why people like me are here, to show y'all people what's going on, all right? The times we're living in. Brother, he's telling you the times we're living in. He was telling you predictions of the future. What do we see in America? He's talking about Revelations, and then right as he's talking about Revelations, he starts talking about we need unity and all this. We gotta have it. If you just don't see it, you just don't see it.
And as institutions, the government must certainly share the guilt. Individuals must share the guilt. Even the church must share the guilt. We must face the sad fact 11 o'clock on Sunday morning when we stand to sing, "In Christ there is no east nor west."
Amen. Amen.
We stand in the most segregated hour of America.
We are, man. You hear that, guys? Do you hear that? All right. Christians, we want unity. We love each other, man. We love all the races. Every race is a unique creation of God, man. Christianity is if they tell you that Christianity, the true Christianity that Jesus Christ preached, is a terrorist, that's further from the truth. Because he symbolized and what Jesus Christ did through non-violent means, all right? That's the only way, and that's how Christ did it back in the day. That's how Jesus Christ did it. He didn't do it through violence. He did that shit through unity and peace. And all you see coming out of the side that everybody thinks, a lot of these people think is good, right? The side that uses his words and flips them. The side that has infiltrators, civil rights leaders that are working to establish and for the beast system and nothing else. Nothing else. That's why after you see Brother Martin Luther King was assassinated, that puppets was put into his place. All right? If you don't believe me, go read some books. All right? Because it's going to be hard to find it on YouTube now. Because we don't have free speech in America no more. That is abolished. If you think it ain't, think again.
Has come for everybody, for all institutions, for the public sector and the private sector, to work to get rid of racism. Now, if we're to do it, we must honestly admit certain things and get rid of certain myths that have constantly been disseminated all over our nation. One is the myth of time. It is a notion that only time can solve the problem of racial injustice. And there are those who often sincerely say to the Negro and his allies in the white community, why don't you slow up? Stop pushing things so fast. Only time can solve the problem. And if you will just be nice and patient and continue to pray, in 100 or 200 years, the problem will work itself out. Well, that is an answer to that myth. And it is that time is neutral. It can be used either constructively or destructively. And I'm sorry to say this morning that I'm absolutely convinced that the forces of ill will in our nation, the extreme rightists of our nation, the people on the wrong side, have used time much more effectively than the forces of goodwill. And it may well be that we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and the violent actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence and indifference of the good people who sit around and say, wait on time. Somewhere we must come to see that human progress,
we don't have time,
rolls in on the wheels of inevitability.
We didn't have time then to unite and come together. We didn't have time then. He was telling you urgently, come together, brothers and sisters. Stop this hatred. Stop this division, this For it'll sure, not only is it wrong, but it not only is it wrong and it's not right, but it's going to lead to our destruction and then our demise.
It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God.
I am.
Without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. So we must have time and realize that the time is always right to do right.
Always right.
Now that is another myth that still gets around. It is a kind of over-reliance on the bootstrap philosophy. And there are those who still feel that if the Negro is to rise out of poverty, if the Negro is to rise out of slum conditions, if he is to rise out of discrimination and segregation, he must do it all by himself. And so they say,
right, yeah, right.
The Negro must lift himself by his own bootstraps.
Can't.
They never stop to realize.
You can't when you got the elites, when you got the synagogue of Satan controlling people, all right, and controlling nations, all right. It's just, it's sad.
No other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. The people who say this never stop to realize that the nation made the black man's color a stigma. But beyond this, they never stop to realize the debt that they owe a people who were kept in slavery 244 years. In 1863, the Negro was told that he was free as a result of the Emancipation Proclamation being signed by Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, they was free then, right? Right. Just like we're free today, right? We're all free now today, right? We're all free. We just had a black president. Yeah, man, everything's good.
But he was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. It was something like keeping a person in prison for a number of years and suddenly discovering that that person is not guilty of the crime for which he was convicted. And you just go up to him and say, now you're free. But you don't give him any bus fare to get to town. You don't give him any money to get some clothes to put on his back or to get on his feet again in life.
No, in fact, you make it harder. You make it harder. You implement laws and I mean, just look what Joe Biden did. Just look what Joe Biden did. He literally destroyed the black and brown communities. All right? Joe Biden, if you think that unity, right, and that the interest of the black community, the brown community, and the white community is in the hands of a man that for years passed laws that destroyed not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but quite literally hundreds of millions of black and brown families across the United States of America. Some of those laws that he passed, it's unfathomable the scale of destruction. All right. It took away generational wealth for the black communities, all right, and for the poor white communities. Not just the black communities now. Don't get it misconstrued, all right? There's poor white communities that went to the same thing, but just a little different, all right? The poor white communities was in the dominantly black neighborhoods, and we was the one that was the minority, all right? So that's how they changed. That's how they changed it. They said, we're going to do it. It don't matter what color you are anymore. It matters if you're poor, uneducated, or if you got money. And if you're educated and got money, you're going to have money. You know, if you're educated, you're going to have money, right? So it's so multifaceted, dude, how they just...
Every code of jurisprudence would rise up against it. And yet this is the very thing that our nation did to the black man. It simply said you're free, and it left him there penniless, illiterate, not knowing what to do. And the irony of it all is that at the same time,
in steps
the nation
Biden.
failed to do anything for the black man.
Yeah, and then in steps Biden.
Through an act of Congress, it was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did it give the land, it built land-grant colleges to teach them how to farm. Not only that, it provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, as the years unfolded, it provided low interest rates so that they could mechanize our farms. And to this day,
You hear him?
thousands of these very persons are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies every year not to farm. And these are so often the very people who tell Negroes that they must lift themselves by their own bootstraps. It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. We must come to see that the roots of racism are very deep in our country. And there must be something positive and massive in our...
And the enemy knew this. All right. The enemy knew this. And now they used it against them. They used the whole thing to their advantage. That's what's going on right now. You know what I mean? It's like I'm living in the twilight zone, man. That's why for anybody that you know, this is not, you know, what Martin Luther King wanted at all. He don't. And people say, "Oh, well, listen to his family. His family's got to live." Do you understand that they killed this man? There's some things. There's a power so persuasive, so precise that the biggest men's in business better not speak about it, for it'll be the end of not only you, your kids' kids, and your kids' kids. Just look at JFK. To look no further, all right? They did it generational.
To get rid of all of the effects of racism and the tragedies of racial injustice. And that is another thing closely related to racism that I would like to mention as another challenge. We are challenged to rid our nation and the world of poverty. Like a monstrous octopus, poverty spreads its nagging, prehensile tentacles into hamlets and villages all over our world. 2/3 of the peoples of the world go to bed hungry tonight. They are ill-housed, they are ill-nourished, they are shabbily clad. I've seen it in Latin America, I've seen it in Africa. I've seen this poverty in Asia. I remember some years ago, Mrs. King and I journeyed to that great country known as India. And I never will forget the experience. It was a marvelous experience to meet and talk with the great leaders of India. To meet and talk with and speak to thousands and thousands of people all over that vast country. These experiences will remain dear to me as long as the cords of memory shall lengthen. But I say to you this morning, my friends, that with those depressing moments, how can one avoid being depressed when he sees with his own eyes evidences of millions of people going to bed hungry tonight? How can one avoid being depressed when he sees with his own eyes God's children sleeping on the sidewalks at night? In Bombay, more than 1 million people sleep on the sidewalks every night. In Calcutta, more than 600,000 sleep on the sidewalks every night. They have no beds to sleep in. They have no houses to go in. How can one avoid being depressed when he discovers that out of India's population, more than 500 million people, some 480 million, make an annual income of less than $90 a year. And most of them have never seen a doctor or dentist. As I noticed these things, something within me cried out, can we in America stand idly by and not be concerned? And an answer came, oh no, because the destiny of the United States is tied up with the destiny of India and every other nation. And I started thinking of the fact.
Did you hear him?
That we spend in America millions of dollars a day to store surplus food. And I said to myself, I know where we can store that food free of charge in the wrinkled stomachs of the millions of God's children all over the world who go to bed hungry at night. Maybe we've spent far too much of our national budget establishing military bases around the world, rather than bases of genuine concern and understanding. Not only do we see poverty abroad, I would remind you that in our own nation, there are about 40 million people who are poverty-stricken.
All right, guys.
I have seen them here and there. I've seen them in the ghettos of the North. I've seen them in the rural areas of the South. I've seen them in Appalachia. I've just been in the process of touring many areas of our country. And I must confess that in some situations, I have literally found myself crying. I was in Marks, Mississippi the other day, which is in Quitman County, the poorest county in the United States.
All right, guys. So I wanted you guys to get a gist of what he was saying at the beginning. All right, what Brother Reverend Martin Luther King was saying in the beginning of the video. And if you want, you can go check that whole video out. It's his last Sunday sermon, Martin Luther King's last Sunday sermon. So go check that out. It's very enlightening and very eye-opening to what he was saying right before his untimely demise. And we're living in that time right now, folks. We're living in that time. They've used race against us. They've used any means of hate, any means of division they've used against us, all right? So it's all for preparation, all right? A divided house shall not stand, all right? And that's a fact. Throughout history, a divided house shall never stand. So we need unity. We don't need more hate. We don't need more division, all right? We all know that you're welcome, Deborah. Yes, we all need unity. You know, this man spoke Christ. He spoke just like Christ. So that was one of the main things that let's not forget, like that's what he stood for, right? He stood for unity, man, and he stood for, you know, mm, basically unity. That's what he stood for, all right? And um not not fighting, you know, and that's how you win. That's how you win. That's how we win this. We win this through unity, all right? And he could see it that if we didn't do this, that it was going to be in Revelations. That's how they were going to work. That's what I believe. You know, whether he got that through a dream or what, this is what's going to be how they were going to destroy America. And it even goes back to the 1920s. You can even read books to where communism said that, you know, that would be how they would take out America because we're so fractured, right? Race wise, we're so fractured that if they attack that hard enough, if they attack that race, right, and that divide, that great divide, which really ain't a divide if we all came together, right? But they attack that, and from them attacking that so hard, look what you have. You know what I mean? Look what you have. You have division on the largest scale possible in America right now, all right? So many people worried about Trump, so many people worried about Biden, so many people worried about this and that, when in fact, in all actuality, it's us the whole time. We have the power. We look for one man to give the power, but they're always controlled. They are always, and if you don't think they're not, it's not supposed to look like they are. It's supposed to look like they're enemies. That's exactly what it calls for, all right? It don't call for them. It wouldn't work if they looked at friendly, if they looked at like they were in cahoots with each other. No, it's supposed to look like all out blood, all right, for this to work. They control both sides. The puppet master controls both, all right? And he always uses opposite with negative, all right? The opposite of the opposite, all right? Whether it's negative, it's always positive and not negative, right? Opposite and whatever the hell the word is, right? So that's how they operate, all right? Good and bad, right? This guy's doing something for this people, all right? He's getting all these people worked up, and then he's getting all these people worked up, and then out of that, because the people have control. We got to get the people in order first, have them bring about this revolution with the aid of us, because we're helping do it. We're basically facilitating it. And we get what we want in the end. Everybody slaves. Cheers.